Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third and last day of Learn by Design 2025. Before introducing the keynote, I would like to encourage you again to participate in the collaborative mind map that is near the welcome desk, because we will use it as a guideline or a prompt to the roundtable in the afternoon. So you are very welcome to contribute to the discussion. Now, introducing our keynote for today, Katja Tschimmel. She is a consultant, executive trainer, researcher, lecturer, and conference speaker, operating at the intersection of business and academia. Holding a PhD in design and a master's applied creativity, she brings over 20 years of experience in creativity, design thinking, design education, and innovation. Katja Tschimmel is also, since 2023, the Portuguese ambassador for the World Creativity and Innovation Week. Welcome, Katja Tschimmel.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Thank you, Violeta, for presenting me. How are you? You are fine? Well, 3 days. Everybody's a bit tired. I see it's not completely full, but okay, let us see that we can do the best possible on our third day of the conference. So first of all, thank you for having me here. It's really a pleasure to be here. And I brought these glasses with me because it protects. Who is here in this light? It's really, I mean, I think actors are really suffering sometimes. So it's really kind of, wow. Okay, so I'm here to, and I was invited to share with you a kind of blended experience. I'm, yes, academic, doing research, yes, but I also do a lot of work with organizations, with public and private ones. So these days, these 2 days before, I was trying to see as much as possible from the parallel sessions, presentations of papers. And I was writing down some topics which I thought were the kind of main interest, worrying topics which I could identify in your presentation. Obviously, it's not all, because I couldn't be in all. It's only from these one which I were assisting. So perhaps you can recognize here one or the others from your own presentation or the presentation you assisted. So I wrote this one on this slide because I will, in a certain way, direct or indirect, to mention to all of these concepts. Okay? But be free, feel free at the end to do concrete questions relating with whatever of this. I want to start with a quote from Kees Dorst. Kees Dorst has been a researcher who has influenced a lot my work, my research work. And he wrote in a book, there are many approaches one can take to understand design. You know that there are thousands of definitions. So these differing viewpoints are rooted in the fundamental different ways people look at the world. So we have rationalists against intuition, problem solvers against learners, idealists against pragmatists, etc. So I would like to have you in this mindset to consider that whoever is giving a speech is doing it with a certain background, with a certain experience and knowledge, and it never will satisfy everybody. So it is a personal journey, and I invite you to follow my personal journey. I don't know why I put in the title 40 years, because then I thought, no, my design journey actually only started in 92 actually, when I started with design. But then I thought, no, I will do an effort and we'll see what happened in my life these 40 years. So we start in 85, that's me in 85, and that's on the other side, it's me two weeks ago. So these are 40 years, effectively. So in the middle of the 80s, I was finishing my secondary studies and then traveling a bit around. Actually, I have been working in a kibbutz in Israel at that time, but other journeys. But my focus was very on education. And then actually I started to study in Germany. I was still living in Germany. I started first with Germanistic, German language and literature, then Romanistic, I hated Germanistic, then social science, but all with a focus on education. I wanted to be an educator. Perhaps because my mother also was an educator, I don't know. But my father was an engineer. And I think this influence then came later when I changed to design. But in this time, there were two important publications by Donald Schoen. I guess everybody of you know, in the minimum, the ideas which are in the books, if not have even read one or the other book. So it's about the reflective practitioner and educating the reflective practitioner. So design here by Schoen is seen as a reflective practice. He describes it as a conversation with the situations. Designers speak first with themselves, so it's an inner dialogue, but then also with other partners, stakeholders, etc. And this view, I think, really influenced deeply design education. And for the design thinking discourse, which is my topic today, it was also really important because it showed how empathy, the reframing of the problem, solution space, and iteration is important. So while I were trying to be an educator, there came a really important publications. And what also happened at that time, design research was beginning to be more recognized in the academic world. So there came out important journals, conferences, and research into design methods and theory and user-centered approaches. And all these three areas were very important for me when I started my design journey. So there was a rising interest in design theory and methodology, and now not only as, which is obviously part of the design discipline since ever, but here as a formal research area. So people were starting to do formal academic research. And then these two subjects were also integrated in curricula in design schools. So that's me when I came to Portugal. This was 1990. I fall in love with the Portuguese, and as his German were impossible, I thought, okay, I speak Spanish, so I can adapt. So I came and stayed. Now I'm in the second marriage, still happy. So it was a good decision to come to Portugal. Actually, at the time, he was saying, you sure you want it? And if it's not going well with us, then I said, no, I like the city, I will stay. And that's what happened, and I'm very happy here. So coming in the 90s, of course, there are always certain references which we connect to our own design education. So my reference were this book, which then were published in a lot of language, and then there was a second and third edition. This is by Bernhard Bürdek. I don't know if some of you know him. He is still alive. I just checked it. He's around 80s, I think, pensioned now, obviously, but still giving some speeches. And he wrote this really important book about design, history, theory, and practice. Perhaps if you are from communication design, it's not so well known for you, but for product designer, industrial designer, it was a must at that time. And then later, still as a student, I went to a conference in Germany, and I liked his way of being and dealing with design. So I asked him to be my second supervisor for my PhD later. My first supervisor, Fátima Pombo, is sitting here. It's really nice that you have, kind of testifying here my approach of my journey. But what was interesting there, Bürdek actually wouldn't have been possible to be supervising whoever. I think I have been the first person he were co-supervising because he didn't have a PhD. And in Germany, PhD came very late. And he were always kind of suffering with that. And then 1 year before he got pensioned, he published his PhD, which he hasn't defended in Germany because he didn't want it to be judged by his students, which were at that time sitting there. So he did it in Austria. And he wrote, this is his PhD published. And I mean, it's in German, but if you have the possibility, it's very interesting because here he describes how design is on the way to be an own discipline. And I think that is an interesting subject also for design education, because when I was educated, I think I only had one only designer as a professor. All the others came from everywhere. So design was always seen as an interdisciplinary discipline. So we were drinking from the knowledge from others. But then the question is, what is our knowledge? What is our own disciplinary knowledge, which we can take out of our design domain and bring to others? And in his perception, and yeah, obviously I'm very influenced by that, it's a design process and the design semantic, which is related with communicational language, with aesthetic, so all what's giving a meaning to the artificial world. So my way went to the focus on the process, which is one of the disciplinary knowledge. But funny enough, in my design education, the project professors gave us this recipe. This is in Portuguese. I'm sorry, I couldn't find it in English. By Bruno Munari. Perhaps it's a reference to you. So Bruno Munari did this recipe of rice, green rice, I think. And as you see, creatividad is in the middle of the process. And yeah, our teacher were giving us these kind of models. And I thought, that's strange. So shall I be only creative in the middle of the process? I was puzzling with that. And then in that book, which I just showed you by Buurdijk, I found his visualization of the process, which is for 71. And at that time, he already understood that the design process is not a linear process from a problem to a solution, which were very discussed or promoted, let's say, in the 70s and then, 80s. But he did all this, you see, these loops, and understood that we have to go back to go further. So then when I started to do my PhD, actually I am a trained product designer, and then I did a master in applied creativity to understand better these things about creative thinking and the creative process. But then I understood there was really a shift of paradigm in design methodology. So there was a shift from a more objective, analytical and positivist vision and a deductive approach to a subjective, reflective, phenomenological and inductive one. And who really helped me to understand better this move was the PhD thesis from Kees Dorst. These are two images from this thesis. He published this in '97, and here you can see that he wanted to explain that until that time, there was a kind of rational problem-solving approach to design, where the designer should be objective, as that would be possible. Today we know, we know a lot of, from neuroscience, from people who studied our emotional part, how important the subjective, emotional, intuitive part is in our decision-taking. So, but in the 70s, people were still trying to find a kind of method which is valid for every kind of design process. But now, the new paradigm is called the reflective practice, which is based on the two books which I showed you by Donald Schoen. And here the designer now is really interpreting a situation with all his background, which is subjective. It depends on the educational experience we had, the practical experience, etc. So for me, that helped me a lot to understand where am I with my thinking in design. Here we have another visualization where you can see the designer before was in the middle, and we're translating in an objective analysis and then objective evaluation the design problem. And now it's a kind of subjective interpretation between the design task. So it's the name changed also. It's not a problem, it's a task, to the design solution. And a bit later, 2001, Keith Storrs did a research with Nigel Cross. Nigel Cross, one of the fathers of design methodology, or I say fathers, I mean important researchers. They published this book, this article, Creativity in the Design Process, Co-Evolution of Problem Solving. This was published in Design Studies. At the time, you know, was one of the most important design journals, scientific design journals. And here in this scheme, you can see they defend that it's never a problem solving, it's always a problem space, and the evolution and the problem itself will evolve in the looking for new solutions. So they call it the solution space. And if we look at this, we recognize now the way design thinking in these days is approached. It's very influenced by this paper. And here it's me. I got one day after defending my PhD this nice drawing from one element from the jury, Eduardo Cortreal. He's not here. He's well known, isn't it? He's drawing people in when he's part of a jury. I love that. I mean, one day after that thing, and then you get this. You can see there in this drawing also Bernhard Bürdek in the front, and another element of the jury, which is Nilsa Costa here from Aveiro. So I just want to share some results from my PhD research, because they show how then the influence the PhD had on my professional journey. So first, for me, in the end, it was clear that the designer is not an artist, but also not a rational problem solver. But the designer is somebody who is thinking about realities, about artificial world, trying to integrate information, analyzing the situation, and then giving a cultural contribution. And design thinking is, in a certain way, creative thinking, because it explores the interplay between opposites, which I called symbolically sapiens and demons, but which actually I were referring to knowledge and the unknown, certainty and the uncertain, reason and feeling, etc. So all these dualistic oppositions we are dealing with when we are creating something new. And then the creative design process and the thinking skills, I still think today, should be in the heart of design education. At the time, I thought, it should be exist a dedicated discipline, but yeah, of course, it's not needed. It's enough if it is integrated in the curricula in general in different kind of learning units. But anyway, at that time, I went to Delft to a conference, one of my first paper presentations. This was in 2004. So I was defending a discipline, cognitive processes in design. Actually, it's a print screen of my slideshow at the time. And because I understood through my research that students really lack the awareness of the thinking process. They don't understand really what is happening when they're doing design. I think it's important for this kind of internal reflection, and we also can call it metacognition, because later then I wrote a paper about metacognition, but to help students to understand what's happening when they are involved in a creative process. And another key idea, which I still defend, is that the design educators should be trained as constructivist educators. I don't want to go deeper here to constructivism, but that also was actually a kind of framework I gave to my studies. But here I would think the design educator should have a creative mindset. Actually, yesterday we spoke about the green mindset, so perhaps this definition has to be complemented. So also should accompany students on their dynamic self-organizing learning journeys, fostering reflection, curiosity, goal setting, knowledge construction, and offering support along the way rather than directing the process. So it's more somebody who is doing the journey with a student than somebody who is leading the journey. Because also knowledge is always changing so quickly, and we as educators, we are also learning every day. So why should we have this position? No, I have all the knowledge, and you have to get the knowledge from me. So now to make the passage to design things, to the evolution of design thinking, literature tells us that the ever-increasing research interest in the thinking processes of designers arose clearly from the critique of rational design methodology. So this shift, this paradigm shift, took us to design thinking in its different ways of being applied. So what I will share with you now is my personal interpretation of the evolution of the design thinking concept. This is not written anywhere, but actually next year will be a conference. So you will find something online about this, but it has to be discussed. So there are no conformity on this kind of classification, let us say. So I'm really curious about your feedback then. So let us start with design thinking 1.0, which refers to the cognitive process of designers. And the outcome of this kind of design thinking is clearly an artifact. So it can be, of course, a service, but it's more, there's a product, there's a graphic work, there's a fashion, whatever, there's jewelry, there's architecture, so they are artifacts. And very important articles and different books come from Nigel Cross, which I already mentioned. Here you see the cover from the book Designerly Ways of Knowing. So he researched in all his life, coming from rational methodology. So he did himself this paradigm shift, and he researched a lot what really is the typical way designers think. So he identified characteristics, habits and cognitive styles of designers, starting with problem framing. So designers first look at reality and try to give it a new perspective. But they also are very focused on solutions. So they move very quickly to propose and test solutions, but in an iterative way. So first solution, trying out, testing, and go further. Then, of course, a constructive and visual thinking, using drawings, models, prototypes, etc., to explore and test ideas. And then the iterative and reflective practice, learning by making and testing. Of course, there are much more ideas. It's just a little synthesis of his work. Another author which influenced a lot my thinking about design thinking and design in general are the books from Brian Lawson. This one is How Designers Think. Brian Lawson was an architect, and he did his research with architectural students. So in his mind, architecture is part of design. Like in Delft, it's engineering design. In Portugal, we still have a big differentiation between the engineers, the artists, the architects, and then the designer. In other cultures, in Anglo-Saxonic culture, it's actually all the same classification. It's design, under the roof of design. So Brian Lawson's key concepts, he sees design as a dynamic negotiation between the problem and the solution. We saw this also in the paper by Nigel Cross and Keith Dorst. He also speaks about the dual role of designers, these balancing analytical scientific rigor with aesthetic and user-centric concerns. He also focused on on the fact that designers work under ambiguity and uncertainty. So they often define a problem and propose solutions at the same time, and then advancing through iteration and creative leaps. And then this reflective dialogue we learned already from Schön, the internal dialogue, but also with colleagues, with collaborators, the context also, the dialogue with the context we are working with, and with other stakeholders. Okay, and then there were the foundation of an important conference, or it's called actually a symposium. It's smaller, it's not a big conference, or this was the objective of the founders. So in '91, Nigel Cross with Robert Rotzenberg and Kees Dorst in Delft, they founded the Design Thinking Research Symposium. Actually, in the first 3 years of the symposium, the name was not that, but later then they called it all DTRS. And the first publication is the one from '92, Research in Design Thinking. And here on this slide, you see all the symposiums which already happened, and everything which is where saying theme in white, the focus was on the cognitive process of designers, the designerly way of thinking. What you see in pink or rose were in Israel and in Sweden, the last 2 symposiums. I have been in both. And what happened there, very interesting, and it was really mentioned by the founders, that all papers, with no exceptions, were referring to what I call Design Thinking 2.0. So the papers were not about the cognitive processes of designers. And actually, the chair of the conference in Haifa, Gabriela Goldschmudt, she was very unhappy about that. She was really kind of suffering and said, what's happening with the design thinking community? And so then she challenged me and a colleague from Lisbon, Ana Vasconcelos, to be the host of the next symposium, which I already want to invite you to come there in Lisbon next year. And there the focus will be on design rethinking, where we hope both, or actually the 4 approaches of design thinking will be presented through the papers. So let us see. So this takes me to this shift of design thinking into a human-centered innovation method. So the way today organizations know about design thinking, and you know design thinking is very fashion, so every public and private organization now wants to learn design thinking. And it is seen as an innovation method, human-centered, and which can be applied through all disciplines. So this takes us to the second categorization of design thinking. Now, I don't know if you noticed, I write design thinking at the beginning with uppercase, and the other design thinking, the one, I write always with lowercase to show in a visual way this is a cognitive process and now it's a method. But it's an option, personal option. So now the results could be still, of course, a product, or let us say an artifact, but it's mostly used in the design of services, of business models, and of organizational change. And that's why companies really want to learn about design thinking. And I think it started, or one of, it's very difficult to say it started then or then, but I see the beginning in this documentary realized by the ABC Nightline in the States. They asked a design company, IDEO, to allow them to film them during 1 week while they are working on a design project, which in this case was a shopping cart. This video is online. It's interesting to see how actually at the beginning of the video, the team is presented. And there's only one designer. There's a marketing guy, a psychologist, I think a biologist. So it starts really to show that design can be done in collaboration with different disciplinary knowledge. So after this, then there came different books and articles out about actually what happened in this video. So the first books, The Art of Innovation, were written by Tom Kelly and Jonathan Littman. They are both in this video. So Tom Kelly is one of the founders of IDEO, and Jonathan Littman at the time was the product designer there. And they speak about design thinking, but don't call it like this. They just show what is the kind of process they work at IDEO. And then 3 years later, Bruce Nussbaum wrote an article in the Business Week, The Power of Design, but he speaks about design thinking and the design process at IDEO. Actually, you can see on the picture David Kelly, which was one of the founders, and the actual CEO, which is Tim Brown, standing there. And then Tim Brown, in 2008, wrote for the Harvard Business Review an article, and this article is called Design Thinking. And I think there it started this version 2.0, seeing design thinking as a method for innovation. And then he wrote this book 1 year later, Change by Design, which is about the design process written for non-designers. So here you see really this paradigm shift. And in this book, he defines design thinking, expressing the introduction of design methods and the culture of design into fields beyond traditional design. So traditional design, of course, for them is product design, because that's from where they come, but it's also communication design, fashion design, etc. And now it comes to service design, but also business innovation. And this is really, really new. And from that on, then business schools started to teach design thinking to their business students. And in 2012, I did this little exercise, which is not possible anymore to do because you can't have the numbers. But at that time, you still could have numbers. I found it in one of my old slideshows. So in Google, I put design thinking, and there came out in January 33,600,000 researching result for images. I just put images. And you see some of the process models there. And then in May, which means 4 months later, there came 205 million more results, which is enormous in such a short time. I think, no, it doesn't worth it to do it because it will be, I don't know how many. But which shows us that was the time that design thinking in this new version as an innovation method really did a bit jump. And there were designed a lot of process models. Process models, as you know, are helping to make a complex reality more perceptible and more operative. When you work in interdisciplinary teams with companies who are not used to work with design or to innovation, they need a kind of guide. And of course, you have here some, again, visual presentations which look a bit linear again, but then others wanted to show more organically ways that there's iteration in it, or through these loops. For example, the Hasso-Plattner Institute shows this. And I mean, you recognize the double diamond. I saw this in some of your presentations. Also, I saw the version from the Hasso-Plattner Institute. Because this is, of course, this comes from English-speaking countries, England and the States, and that is influencing people. And if you Google it, that's what people find. And that's why the new researchers use, even in design methodology, they use these models. But they're actually not coming from design methodology. They're coming from a new, broader approach. So that's interesting what happened there. And this is probably also the reason that designers in general, they don't like that evolution of design thinking. Because it looks like that now, what, everybody can do design? How is that? I mean, we are trained for years or even 5. Okay, but we will come to that, and I can give you my opinion on that. Because actually, when I finished my PhD, I were designing a process model, a creative process model, I called it at the time. And then I noticed what were happening. And a colleague of mine said, oh, you did your PhD about design thinking. This is a good opportunity to work with companies, because we met in our master of creativity. And so I thought, oh, let me see what's happening there. And I also, when I finished my PhD, I thought, okay, my colleagues from product design, graphic design, they had their studios, but my focus was the process. So I never had really a practical life. I always were researching, reading a lot. But I thought, no, it's an opportunity to give something back to society. So I created my consultancy and started to work with organizations. And yeah, I had the intention to have a model which works with organizations which are not used to work with design thinking or this process. And I wanted that it works in Portuguese and in English. So that's why the name Evolução, that works. And yeah, here in this case, there are six phases, but it's not important. I'm not saying that that model is better than the others. It's just different visually, because it actually is really not important. What is important, what is happening there? And it's important that the people who are working in the innovation process can understand it and identify with it. So yeah, I will not go deeper to this, but if you're interested, I put some little booklets outside. You can take them with you. They were on the table with the books. So what I did then, of course, because I worked on that, on different versions on the model during 5 years, so I started to test it, first with students in teaching. This is a picture from Finland, where I'm giving every year a masterclass in design thinking in a service innovation master course. But also tried it out then with companies, of course, and even in research. There were research projects which were also guided by these 6 phases. And in 2014, I coordinated a European project where we used this model actually in the research itself, and we published it in a report, the research report EdSIG. The project's name is EdSIG. And this was design thinking applied to education and training. So what we did is, this was European with several partners of several countries. We did the first part and the coordination of the project. Actually, then we published a toolkit. And in the toolkit, what you can find, we created 6 scenarios, learning scenarios. This is for educators in any kind of area. It's not for design educators. Could be, but that was not the purpose. So we have the context of setting the learning, setting the pedagogical framework, and setting up and revising a curricula, then the conceiving the learning, developing contents, and setting the assessment, and then facilitating the learning through designing the learning space, and also rethink the role of the educator, which we call here the facilitator of learning. And this kind of toolkit for educators, also our focus was that they get more confident about their own creative potential, that they all are creative and should be, to help to reinvent. And I mean, the educational system really needs innovation. And if the educators are not confident of their capacity, how can they do that? So this was also a purpose, to give them more creative confidence. And working with different kind of techniques, and have fun with it also, and see that innovation can be a playful process. And yeah, as Violeta said, since 2 years I'm representing Portugal in the initiative of the World Creativity and Innovation Week and Day. And in my company we always do, in between this week, which is from the 15th of April to the 21st of April, we do always kind of collaborative projects. And in 1 year, I thought, oh, it would be nice to have a little small book where all these dualistic concepts are explained, not to researchers. This is not a book really for researchers. It could be. It's useful for students, but it's not getting very deep. But it was written also that people from organizations understand the difference. For example, I wrote about what's the difference between design and design thinking. And a lot of people ask me, is a designer not a design thinker? Of course a designer is a design thinker, because they think when they do design. But other people also can have the mindset of design thinking. So it's a kind of making clear this kind of strange questions. But then what we noticed in this evolution using design thinking as an innovation method, that more and more design thinking is applied to tackle now more complex, more systemic issues, such as sustainability, climate adaptation in cities, housing equity, or energy health. Which takes us to design thinking 3.0. Where actually the focus is life. It's not human-centered anymore. Of course it is still, because life-centered, I mean the humans are part and part of the planet, but it's broader now, the focus. And important publications in this category are first from Ezio Manzini, Design for Social Innovation. He is not using the concept of design thinking, but he's clearly saying that designers have to work with society, with other stakeholders from society. If not, they can't tackle social problems. And then a very important publication comes from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Together with IDEO, they created the Circular Design Guide. I recommend you to see this. They have a lot of good techniques to be used, and the focus is circular economy. I also heard some presentations about this. And then the British Design Council, you know that they are the author of the Double Diamond, but they probably also understood they can't only show these 4Ds, four phases of the Double Diamond. They have to make clear it's much more complex. So they created now this framework, but then I saw also the other framework from one of your presentations with the green approach. So, of course, frameworks are also in continuous evolution. And then a very nice book by Crystal Varnell and Peter Jones, Design Journeys Through Complex Systems. A lot of good techniques explained in a very visual way, which can be very useful in design education. So that's where we are. In my personal work with companies, so we created also, again, a framework. We love frameworks. So here it's for social change. We call it the Social Evolution 6, again, 6 phases, but here influenced by the Nestor spiral, which comes from social innovation world. We wanted that people who are working in social innovation recognize our model and then can make sense of it. So, of course, we published about that. Actually, we did a research process, project, which presented then in Haifa in the symposium. We worked half a year with social workers with this model and wanted to find out if social workers can become design thinkers. The result was mixed. It's a lot of resilience, and very difficult for them to feel really creative. But a bit changes in their mindset happened. So I'm not very convinced that that worked. What is working better is working with design thinking for circular economy. So we redesigned our evolution model and call it re-evolution, kind of cycle. The process is actually the same, 6 phases again. But what is important here, what is really new in this model is we put in the acronym re-evolution the strategies of circular economy. So this is a kind of blending framework with the process of design thinking, but also with the principles of circular economy. And you find also different publications of it. One is in a book which is also laying on the table here outside. So we have posters, we have card games. One of the card games is also here on the table. And we use it to bring awareness to organizations that sustainability is not only recycling. It's much more. It's not only upgrading. It's much more. So we have in total 52 action cards and 11 strategy cards where it's shown that there are a lot of different ways to do circular design. So here is one example from a practical work we did last year with the Portuguese Energy Agency. It was a very, very complex process, and I only show you the stakeholder map, because by the stakeholder map, you see how complex actually design thinking is becoming. And here it was, we did 4 months, did 10 workshops with different stakeholders, all coming from the energy area, and mapped with them. So first we did the first draft of stakeholders, then we printed it out. This was a workshop where some of the stakeholders have been. Then they had to find themselves. If they didn't could find them, they had to put their name or their institution there. And this is then the result. Where you can see in the middle is the project was a space for citizens to get informed about energy solutions. And then we put stakeholders from academia, from business, from civil society, and from the government, and the planet is also around. So this was very complex. At the moment, the result, the concept of these spaces are implemented in Portugal. It was a European project, finance project, and the objective, the goal was 50 spaces having this year. At the moment, they have already more than 200 spaces. And the feedback they gave us, this came because we did these 10 workshops with different kind of stakeholders. So people were involved in the process. So, and they came from different cities, from different municipals. And as they were involved in this process, they want to have these spaces. And they are promoting the project. So it's very important. Of course, in this project, we had designers in the project, we had architects in the project, and then other kind of stakeholders. And this kind of integration and transdisciplinary work is very important, and people really identify with the result and work for its implementation. Okay, and now we come to the last category, which I call Design Thinking 4.0, where obviously artificial intelligence comes in. And I think here it's the opportunity to come back to the origin of design thinking, to the cognitive process of designers. So it will be a blending now, a kind of hybrid human-machine process, where obviously ethical considerations have to be very present. And we saw this on the first day when we did here with Emilia, this discussion about our perception of the role of artificial intelligence in design. So I just want to share with you 3 initiatives. So in 2024, there is a design thinking, there's a global design thinking alliance where a lot of schools, I mean, the D school from Stanford and the one from Potsdam were starting it, but now they are kind of, I don't know, 200 different schools being part of this movement. And in 24, they're dedicated to artificial intelligence and design thinking. But I have to tell you, in their perception, design thinking is still the method to innovation. It's not the cognitive process of designers. So we have now these parallel communities, but powerful communities. Actually, I think this community is much more powerful than the little design research community because they are working outside with organizations every day. So I think we should not be too arrogant from our design perspective. It's very powerful. So let us see how can we give a good and become, again, design becoming more important in this movement. And actually, a proof of that there is now a kind of fusion of designers and this kind of design thinkers is the annual conference in Izmir, which was last week. Some of you have been there, you told me already. And the focus was design thinking for good, but obviously artificial intelligence also was a subject of discussing. And Don Norman was there. And so designers have been invited to come there, which was not at the beginning. So I think we are on a good way. It's always good when different kind of disciplines come together to solve really important problems. And the last initiative I want to share with you is this Design Thinking Research Symposium, which will happen next year in Lisbon. So there we want to dedicate to the future of design thinking and design thinking in all different kind of interpretations and applications. So this is a print screen from the website. You see there are 4 different topics. One is the role of artificial intelligence and ethics. Okay, so I will share my perspective with you. I know some will agree and some probably not, but I think artificial intelligence will not replace design thinking, but yes, transform it from a human-centered approach to a human AI co-creation, whatever that will be, paradigm, where designers act as mediators between human values and machine capabilities. This is just to give you an overview. I spoke about all that. If you want, you can take a picture of that. But anyway, I think you will have access to these slides. So I will not go through it, but it gives us a good overview. Where is the time frame, and then the focus on what, and the kind of methods and tools used in each approach, and the role of the designer then. So I'm coming to my final reflections. Which are the opportunities for design education? So in my perspective, the first shift should be done from methods to mindset. So in a lot of schools, we have design methodologies. Some already quitted it and integrated in design studio or in project. But I think it's more important to train the mindset of future designers. So kind of teaching of meta skills, framing, designers always framing, looking at the situation, trying to interpret it, the systemic thinking, to see connections, the ethical reasoning, and then at the end, a critical reflection. So it's a kind of reducing emphasis on fixed methods and tools, but emphasizing adaptable, context-specific approaches. Second, embed more life-centered and planetary perspective. So we spoke about this green mindset, isn't it? So treating sustainability, regenerative design, and circular economy not as something additional or elective, but as core lens. And then the integration of AI and emerging technologies in a critical way. So teaching students to use it, to try it out, but more as in a partnership in exploration, but not at shortcuts. We commented on that also here, including modules on data ethics, algorithmic bias, and the designer's role in shaping tech responsibility. Also important, cultivating a co-learning pedagogy, so position an educator as companions on the journey, as I mentioned before, rather than leaders of it, because that will encourage a kind of self-organizing student teams, so more peer teaching. In my master's study was the first time I really noticed I learned more from my peer at the time than from the teachers which were there. And I'm working with some of people I met in my master, not in the PhD. So it really is important. People create strong relationships when they are studying. So let us focus on that and give them the power to do something together later. Then also the transdisciplinary and cross-sector collaboration, so bringing together students from design, from engineering, from business, from social science, from arts, etc., to tackle shared challenges. And also partnering, of course, with companies. A lot of universities do this, but also with other communities, little small communities, perhaps from the city, NGOs, municipals, etc. And the end, assessing reflection and impact, not just the output. So in my perspective, evaluation should ascend more on the way students learned thinking, or this new mindset, and how students collaborate, and their attitude also with design, and not only the outcome. I guess a lot of you are already doing that, but yeah, I think it's important to integrate it here. So this is my final thought. Design education must shift from teaching tools to nurturing mindsets, preparing designers to think systemically, act ethically, and co-create with technology and communities, and shape regenerative, life-centered futures. Thank you very much for your attention.
Great. Thank you. We don't have much time for questions, not because you are late, but because we started a bit later, but we have time for 2 questions.
Ooh, responsibility.
Okay, we have a question there.
Peter Scupelli, Carnegie Mellon University. My question for you is, can you talk about how futures and futures thinking fit into your framework?
Yes. Yeah, thank you for your question. It's interesting. Of course, design students should be also trained in future thinking. Actually, when we speak about future thinking, there are 2 perspectives. One is the future skills, which students should learn. There's a lot of discussion on that, a lot of research done. And also the future thinking mindset itself. I don't know which one you were referring to, but I think both is important in the future design education. No doubts on that.
Do you have another question?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe more of a provocation. I think that we need to choose between the green design mindset in point 3 or 3.0 and the AI integration in 4.0, because those 2 aren't going in the same direction at all. The 4.0 AI integration is quickly demolishing all the progress that we've made in other places, in other sectors, with the green design mindset, which is still just emerging. And so if we want to move in that direction, that this 4.0 is a big threat to that, actually. So, I don't know, do you want to respond? It's hard.
Okay. Actually, you know, the first abstract I sent here to the conference, I was speaking only about 3.0, putting both together. The more complex societal issue and the artificial intelligence. But then I thought, no, these are 2 different things. And actually, it's obvious that the 4 are living in parallel. It's not, this classification doesn't mean that now the first version of design thinking, studying cognitive processes, is not important anymore. That's not what it is. It's only a time setting, the evolution of the concept. But it's all at the same time happening. And that's why I was speaking about these 2 kind of communities, the research community of 1.0 and 2.0, which is another community. But they are in parallel. And I agree with, I don't know if it's agreeing, but I'm with you in this provocation that actually it will be a blending and perhaps something else will come out. Actually, then I was thinking, how would be 5.0? And then I thought, probably it would be design thinking for surviving. Yeah, what else comes then? I mean, so I don't know if that was the answer which you, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Katja.
Yeah.
Again.
Thank you.
I will now hand over to Gonçalo to introduce the next roundtable.
Okay. So now we'll continue with Professor Heitor Alvelos, where he will be presenting us a roundtable with some students, PhD students. So just to introduce Heitor, which is a pleasure for me to do it. Heitor Alvelos is a full professor at Universidade do Porto, full professor in design, obviously. He's vice president of EAD, European Academy of Design, and also director of ED+, our research unit within University of Porto also. Most importantly for today's discussion, he served for several years as director of the PhD in Design program at University of Porto, an experience that provides him with a unique insights in opportunities and challenges of collaboration and reciprocity within and among doctoral programs, the very focus of this roundtable. Right.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your kind words, Gonçalo. I'm in a strange situation right now because I am not moderating this session, despite what it says on the program. The session is about the students who kindly asked me to say a few introductory words. They gave me a few minutes, so I will probably contextualize what really is a session about PhD students having a conversation. Moderating a session, nominating me to moderate a session by students, it would imply that the students don't know how to moderate themselves, which obviously isn't true, as we will see next. But the important thing to keep in mind here is the conversation on design students and design education often and paradoxically excludes those same students, which is something I think we've observed over and over. When we speak of students in higher learning, we often think about things such as demonstrations, abolishing fees. Well, it's a very legitimate request, of course, but there's a lot more to be said about that. So we have really and ultimately this kind of paradox where we find, on one hand, doctoral students who are, at the same time, researchers, and I would much rather myself regard them as researchers rather than students. Of course, we have this imperative of a certain culture that I would say is a culture of over-evaluation. It's really quite strange if you think about it. For those of you who teach in PhD programs in Portugal, we grade our students on a scale that is used in high school. It's the same scale, and I find that at least questionable. Still, it has to be done. On the other hand, it's good that we do have parameters to look into the discipline, and I think Katja made a very good case for that, of course. Design research. It's no longer that kind of cloud that floats between disciplines without its own ability to structure a coherent practice and discourse. So, of course, we're happy for that. But Katja mentioned something else as well, the figure of the teacher as the mediator. Katja, you used one final word, which is actually one of the words that I was going to use. So I'm very, very pleased that in a way there's a kind of a sequence here, survival. I do think that we are entering times where we need to be confronted by contexts of emergency and survival. And if we don't begin reflecting, preparing, and acting upon that, we might be in difficult situations quite soon. So why am I saying this in regards to the conversation by the students? Because I think design research these days really is increasingly demanding a huge level of agility, of intuition, and responsiveness that personally, at the fine age of 59, I would rather delegate to a younger generation. Now, the problem with conferences, such as this one, when they're organized 1 or 2 years ahead, in the present times, is precisely the fact that who the hell knows where a design researcher will be in 2 years? Which is, again, why it's important to have structures that act in a very responsive and immediate way. In that sense, we at the European Academy of Design are facing similar challenges. We're preparing the conference for 2027, which will happen at the University of Porto. And we're trying to, on one hand, throw a bit of futurology and work out what will make sense 2 years from now when the time of the conference comes, while at the same time, of course, addressing issues that transcend the context and time that we live. For that purpose, this is an invitation. On the 10th of October at 9 a.m. until 5 p.m., we will be doing an informal session with the European Academy of Design in order to brainstorm on the 2027 conference in Porto at UPTech Baixa. More details shall be provided at the coffee break. But let's go back to the students, and I'll shut up now. Rarely, I think, as I said, our students heard as researchers. But on the other hand, one thing that I'm very, very proud of is the fact that Portugal has actually been at the forefront of doctoral research in design. We have been often and systematically visited by universities from other countries who want to learn from the experience that we gathered over a decade now. So I would say let's also be at the forefront of the integration of doctoral students as fully legitimate partners in this conversation. So over to Daniela and Paulo, who I believe will moderate the session now. Thank you.
So, good morning, everyone. I want to thank Professor Heitor Alvelos for this brilliant introduction. And thank you all for being here, and also the panelists who are here with us. My name is Daniela Marques, and with my colleague, Paulo Colasso, we will be the moderators of this session. It is my pleasure to kick off this session that aims to join design PhD students in Portugal to survey their courses, current dynamics, and synergies according to their own experience. We will have a brief presentation of each panelist, being invited to share contrasting and complementary examples of their research environments and address instances of good practices in their courses and in their own work, as well as the challenges they have faced or are facing in the cross-pollination of ideas, let's say that, and the search for common relevance. After that, we will open the floor to a discussion with all of you. But before we proceed, I wanted to say that this session was organized by a team of students together with our professor, Heitor Alvelos, as part of our doctoral program of design held by the Faculty of Fine Arts of University of Porto. This entire initiative was born from the encouragement of our professor, and we thank him for all the insightful remarks he has made. We are truly grateful for your guidance and support. And now, without further ado, I want to introduce the group of panelists that are with us, coming from different institutions of all over Portugal. Bárbara Torres, Hugo Palmares, Verónica Silva, and Vítor Agostinho. They will present their visions on the prior given topics of shared spaces, skills and resources, reciprocal motivation, informality and proactivity, benefits from colleagues' inputs, mutual contributions among the various projects, and weak ties as drivers of unexpected insights. So, firstly, I want to introduce Bárbara Torres. She's a designer and illustrator from Gondomar. She graduated in communication design with a postgraduate degree in illustration and a master's degree in communication design, specializing in illustration at ESAD Matosinhos. She began her career at Edições Esgotadas 2022. She illustrates books of different literary genres published by this publisher, namely Matilde e o Mundo dos Brinquedos, Quatro Naus e Um Poeta, Pétalas Mágicas, and Um Amigo é um Abrigo. She is currently pursuing a PhD in design at Universidade Lusíada do Porto. And please go ahead and present your perspectives.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to share a short reflection based on my experience while doing a PhD and working full-time. It's not easy, time is scarce, and focus is divided, and there are days when the workload feels overwhelming, but the reality also makes me see the value of collaboration more clearly. When resources, spaces, and skills are shared, it reduces the pressure of having to figure out everything alone. The support and availability of the design faculty and staff have been fundamental. Their feedback, openness, and experience have helped me move forward in key moments of the process. The access to such dedicated mentorship is something I deeply value. Equally important is the access to the university's library, which is truly exceptional. The richness of the catalog, both physical and digital, has been essential in building, deepening, and theoretical framework for my research. More than just a place to study, it's a space that constantly inspires. Colleagues' inputs, even just a quick suggestion or piece of encouragement, often make the difference between getting stuck and moving forward, even if it's just in casual conversations, in a coffee, restaurants, even with peers outside my immediate projects, have sparked unexpected insights. Those ties often give me fresh energy and ideas, which is crucial in juggling so many responsibilities. So for me, collaboration and reciprocity aren't just abstract concepts. They are what makes it possible to keep going as a full-time worker and a PhD student. And I believe many of us can relate to that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bárbara, for your insights. Next, we will have Hugo Palmares, born in Porto. He's a designer and a lecturer since 2016. He's an invited adjunct professor at Polytechnic University of Cavado and Ave, and an invited assistant professor at University of Minho. He holds a PhD in design since 2024 with a scholarship from the Foundation of Science and Technology, a master's degree in design management from the Faculty of Design, Technology and Communication and the Marketing Business School, and a bachelor degree in fine arts from Faculty of Fine Arts at University of Porto. With 15 years of design experience in industry, in companies such as Procalçado, Planitoy, and Decathlon, his research work covers topics such as cultural evolution in industry, symbiosis between art and industry, traditional and innovative processes, design methods, design management, and design education. Hugo, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the doctoral program that promote this discussion. So I finished last year my PhD. That it was a great journey that I did last 4 or 5 years with all the support I received, and it was the best choice I did to choose this program. So it's a connection between University of Porto and University of Aveiro. We had professors from both universities. Of course, I did more time in University of Porto. And something I found that it was great, it was the connection between students and professors, and to build a teamwork. And that it was since the beginning. It was promoted by, in that time, it was Professor Heitor Alvelos, the director of program, and the other professors. They promote that we could build our work together. Different projects, researches, but start to build a title, provisory title, all together, help each other, the first abstract, and then some ideas of methodologies. Every time I had some support with colleagues, and that it was great. Of course, it's important to go to drink with that colleagues, to have lunch, dinner sometimes, to build a nice connection between colleagues. And that it was from the beginning until the end. And I was invited to do some workshops for them, research, I invite them. We helped to do posters, scientific posters. For the colleagues, they didn't manage so well graphic design, and so on and so on. Another thing very interesting is this consortium of ID+, that we have 4 universities, so 2 universities and 2 polytechnics. And for me, it was good to visit some of them and to speak with researchers, professors, and it was a very easy way to move. And like that, I think it was a really easy journey. And that it was my experience. Some colleagues maybe have different experience, but 4 or 5 colleagues, I'm friend of them, and everyone is, they did a successful process and journey, and that it was the great achievement. That's it.
Thank you, Hugo. Thank you for leading us into this overview of your experience that has already finished compared to the others. And following this, I would like to invite Verónica Silva. She's a PhD researcher and invited assistant professor at IAD, Universidade Europeia, Lisbon. Her work explores the intersection of design, education, and artificial intelligence with a focus on bias and ethical integration. Alongside her academic career, she has over a decade of international design practice and is passionate about empowering the next generations of designers to use emerging technologies critically and creatively. Verónica, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here and not, escaping the room. My name is Verónica Silva, and despite the last name, I think I'm the only non-Portuguese here. So perhaps my perspective is slightly different than the others. I was a bit skeptical, to be honest, to study in Portugal because of the size of the country and the size of the schools. I come from bigger countries. But these had positive surprises for me. The fact that the community is relatively small gives me the opportunity to have a lot of connections. If one of my professors, if I ask them for help, they most likely know somebody in Aveiro, in Porto, in Guimarães, everywhere. So that's really, really positive. Also, the fact that I can speak to them directly, like if I find them in the cafeteria or something like that, instead of sending an email, scheduling an appointment, etc. So in that sense, I think my work is being faster. And also, Portugal is. Well, I'm not going to get into any political issues right now, but Portugal usually welcomes people from outside. So in that sense, I've been in contact with a lot of researchers from many countries, and that's super positive. So yeah, in short, my experience is like I was not sure how it would be in a small environment, but I found it really, really positive so far.
Thank you, Verónica. Your vision is really different because you are not from here, and I think it's a plus to be on this panel with you to learn also how is your vision from outside. for here. But before we go to the open discussion, I want to invite our final speaker, Vitor Agostinho. He's a designer with extensive experience in the ceramic and glass industry, and since 2012 focused on his work on personalized and self-production approaches as a result of the research initiated within his master project. Throughout his career, he has explored different strategies to develop innovative processes of ceramic and glass forming, being distinguished by the creation of objects that allow formal variations from a single mold, giving each piece a unique identity. Currently, he is part of a design doctoral program at University of Aveiro. So, Victor, go ahead.
At first place, thank you for the invite. Second place, excuse me, my bad English. I will try to do better. I will explain the 3 last years of my experience in the PhD in University of Aveiro. I'm doing my whole education in design in Caldas da Rainha, in the EdSIG. It's a school more practical than academic, and the first time in the Aveiro it will be a different experience doing classes with the more academic school. I prefer work with my hands, and I in the Aveiro must be thinking what I'm doing with my hands. My process in my time in the Aveiro, the first time, lots of people are from Caldas too, but from different ages and different experience. It's so good the time between Caldas and Aveiro, 2 hours by car and talking about the classes and our project and the experience of them, and we talk about our teams is so good because it's different kinds of the themes they are working. Okay, now I am in the 4th year in the PhD. The time with my college it's smaller. Now I am more in my studio in Caldas, more alone, with my problem, with my experience. Focus of my project is lots of in process, doing what I'm doing. Will be what I don't have now write lots of things. I'm writing something about the experience I'm doing. I hope in the end of this year I have a bigger, strong document, I can say. One thing, the speed of my work is sometimes not what I want, because I work. I'm not a student supported by FCT. I work in Caldas, and okay, the speed is a little bit not. I don't want work. Yes, but I'm doing my speed. Okay, and what I can say more, my experience is I can say that. Okay, so let me think in Portuguese to talk in English. Is the okay? Well, maybe you give me some question. Huh? Yes, I'm a more practical designer. I would like to think my hands and connect my eyes and my brain and my hands. I work with the mistake and the improvisation with the process of ceramic. Okay. Sorry.
Thank you, Vitor, for all your perspective. And all these topics direct us now to the open discussion. And to start, I wanted to ask if between the 4 of you have any question about each other. that you would like to ask? If not, Paulo, do you have something?
Well, it's my duty to make some closing remarks, but I would also like to hear a little from Hugo to speak about how he intends to be a teacher, following what we discussed, because one of the main point we discussed here was collaboration, following what Katja also discussed about cultivating co-learning pedagogies and collaboration. Heitor also mentioned that that's the aim with our PhD program, and all of us discussed it, including Barbara, that comes from outside, and she addressed our openness to collaboration, and that's great. And following that, I would like to hear Hugo speak about the way in which he intends to implement, if I learned correctly, the co-learning collaboration between him and his students. And I think something else important was what Vitor talked about, his blending on both cultures, in Caldas more practical and in Aveiro more theoretical. And most of us come from the PhD in Ida Mais, between Porto and Aveiro, not all of us, but those who come from this PhD, we also feel, or are able to feel, some difference between the research culture in Aveiro and in Porto, and I think it's important and nice for us to be able to experience one and another and compare it and find our own way. And this is what I wanted to learn from, listen to them to speak about, and also from the audience. Hugo, please.
So, I think I didn't understand your question, but it's to speak about the collaboration, co-learning.
Yes, if that way of working will influence the way we will teach.
Ah, okay, yeah. Yeah, I feel everyone has different skills to teach or to learn. And I try to involve, it's my DNA, to involve people to be together. In a class also is really important. Also I do some workshops, design thinking and so on, or design process. And I try to mix groups and try them to speak and to work together, and I'm with them to work. So that is essential. I learned that is essential. So it's not a solitary work, as my experience in industry, never alone. And I think it's important to give that idea to the students, that is important to work together, to learn, and to have different departments, different skills and profiles to work together, because they will learn with each other. And the PhD, it was essential that is, it was to learn together. But of course, I spend a lot of time alone to read, to writing. But the most funny parts is when we are working together with someone, even if with doing interviews and focus group and so on with companies and industry, is the most funny part. And that is essential also to pass to the students, because they don't know at the beginning how to work with the others. They know they have some nice skills for drawing or for writing, and after to implement a project in the future, it's important to them to work with the others.
Yeah, that's great. Being able to learn soft skills beyond what the hard skills of the course they went to, and be able to collaborate and learn with each other, like Katja told us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from the audience?
You want to go first? Thank you all for sharing your experiences. It's really a pleasure to hear. Each of you, I think, talked in your own way about getting support from your local community, your peers, and how important that is for your PhD journey. And here we are, kind of representing the global design research community. And I'm curious, from your perspective, how is the global design research community doing in supporting PhD students? Are there things that could be improved, things that are going well, that kind of from your experience as PhD students, looking beyond just your local setting, how is the global design research community performing?
Yeah. For example, my experience, sometimes I would like to read some paper. I ask to the author, but most of the times they didn't send the research. But there's a community, and, but I received some, okay? But I know, sometimes they don't read the message, or the investigation is ongoing, so they don't want to share in that moment. But sometimes we have this difficulty. Yes. Thank you, Fátima. In conference is great because it's very easy. It's an organic way. We speak with some authors. Sometimes we just know by the picture and the work, and then we can have a nice discussions. That is the informal discussion is really rich, in my opinion.
Thank you, Daniela, and thank you for the question. I just want to add a few thoughts. And actually, it's really good to have Hugo in the panel because he's part of what I'm about to remember, which is the time of COVID and how that particular crisis actually and perversely had benefits as well. And actually, one of the benefits was precisely to open up the research, the doctoral research community to a much broader scope. Because we were not confined by geography and everyone was online, the group of students that included Hugo ended up organizing a global doctoral session that was meant to act as a support network for PhD students who were in confinement. Right? Perversely, I think we need to pay attention to these kinds of opportunities that might look like hindrances, and they certainly were in certain aspects. But on the other hand, that global community needs sometimes to be ignited by these people. And that's exactly why they are having their own session. I think we've forgotten them a bit for too long. While I have the mic, I'll just say something else and then I'll shut up. It's very good to hear testimonies about how a PhD journey can be a pleasant journey. I think there's this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy quite often in which a PhD is a bit like a slow torture process. And actually, I'm very, very happy to see that throughout the years, that's not true, at least in most cases, is actually not true. It all depends on where you put your mind. And this support network that we've been talking about in kind of abstract terms, when you translate it into co-writing, for example, co-authorship that was mentioned here, I think it was by Victor, if I'm not mistaken, when we actually write our abstracts together, that really changes everything and turns it into a pleasure. Thank you.
Hi.
Hello. I have a question. Well, it's a bit provocative, but nevertheless.
I teach in the PhD, as you all know, and one of the things, well, and I've been a PhD student myself a long time ago, nevertheless, I started seeing that even in Porto, with Heitor Alvelos, they have created a special edition, a kind of a conference dedicated to PhD students, and we see quite often in Aveiro, yes, sorry, mudei, in Aveiro. And we see quite often that the conferences have a special place for PhD. And how do you find that? Because it is like a first league and a second league. I find that so humiliating. If I was a PhD student, I would be not happy with that, by the way.
Yeah, well, I don't know about everybody else, but I completely disagree with that. No. With the fact of having us separate, like we don't deserve the title yet, and we don't deserve to be called researchers, and we don't deserve to be in the same room. Whereas where we're in a conference like this, and we have the contact with the authors, and like so far, I've been reaching out to people and they get super excited. They ask me about my research, like it is positive. So having us, separated, I don't think it would have a good outcome. And going back to the previous question, I think one way that we could be more supported is that if universities would arrange some event or something and invite other PhD students. So we have interaction with PhD students, but from other universities, not only ours.
Yes. I would like to make a point here. The diversity of the people who are sitting there, PhD stages, is interesting, but I think Victor has raised a very important point, and thank you for that. In design, while we are a practice-based discipline, the gap of practice-based PhDs is huge, and someone who seeks to work with materiality finds it very difficult to find a PhD school where you can locate yourself. Theorizing and those spaces are there, but materiality and learning from materiality and embodied knowledges has a huge gap.
Okay. I have the opportunity work in Caldas da Rainha. I have my small studio or small lab, and while I'm trying and experiment lots of ideas, and at the end of the day, I'm reflecting about I'm doing and thinking and try to write something or some reference. It's my day of work. I am teaching also in Caldas, and I'm teaching like a mix of heritage technology and the lab of materials. And I work 2 days a week in the lab of the workshop of ceramic with my students and try lots of things.
If I may, I have, sorry, go ahead, you. Yeah.
You can go first.
Okay. Just because we are on the same topic, I had a question for Barbara and Vitor. You both are working outside of your PhD, and we have different phases because we didn't mention it, but Barbara is on her first year, Vitor on his fourth, Veronica, I think it's in the middle, third, and we already finished. So how do you see that your work can impact your PhD experiences, and if it's beneficial, if there are more challenges than benefits, if you could go on that?
So for me, it has way more benefits because I'm working as an illustrator and designer, And my PhD is a little bit around that. It's about silent books, it's about color, it's about children. So I always get some help, even for my chief or some authors that come and talk a bit about my work and ask, oh, you're doing a PhD, what are you working on, what are you studying? So it helps a little bit in that. Thank you.
My experience, the problem is the divide the time, because sometimes I work, sometimes I research for my PhD. It's not focused 100% in my PhD, but the other part is good, because I can. It's possible to try. It's possible to talk about other people, other students, and the partnership, the experiences.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you very much for this. This is fascinating. I'm looking at your the word cloud on the screen up there. There's some words I'm particularly fond of: mutual, reciprocal. But there's one in particular, informality, that I have a kind of research interest in. So my question to you would be, could you say a little bit more about the role of informality, how it ended up being up there, and how that might be part of your educational process as PhD students?
Well, maybe I can address that matter, because I was already thinking about not particularly informality, but in the way our PhD in Porto, that although being the same program as Aveiro, it's not exactly the same for what I've seen. I've experienced only Porto, but what I've seen is not exactly the same. And we do feel an atmosphere of informality and also of peer research. We don't feel, and we are not put in a place that we are in a second level. We feel as researchers working along with teachers. And also about the other question about materiality, I also feel the same, because my work also relates to the materiality, and all goes to the same point. We do feel the openness to work with what we want to work in a way we want to work, and being helped also by teachers and our colleagues, and working collaboratively and together, and working together in all our researches. So if we want, of course, some people might not be so at ease with this type of work, but those who want have not their own research, but the research made in partnership with the colleagues and teachers. And we do feel like we can address the matters with all people with no problem. So I think I'm able to answer in our group how informality is put to practice in every step. But maybe you can have some inputs more.
Maybe I am moderating, I don't know. I'm very sorry to hold the microphone again, but some thoughts, and I'll be brief. Regarding informality, I think part of what goes on has to do with being very aware of the fact that we face a choice, both in our daily lives, but also in the zeitgeist, which is the choice between competition and cooperation. And a lot of what is around us, including our studies and research, is about competition, as we know. Competition for funding, competition for grading, competition for an excellent by FCT, and so on. This issue of informality is directly connected, in my opinion, with the opposite mind frame. The mind frame of collaboration, the mind frame in which each PhD student feels responsible for every PhD in that room. And that sense of shared responsibility brings a different kind of atmosphere. What I would like to point out as well, very briefly, in regards to the issue of practice-based research, frankly, I see it as a non-problem. Research in any discipline is the production of communicable knowledge, as Bruce Archer said once. If you produce that knowledge through text, that's fine. If you produce that knowledge through an object, as long as you're communicating that knowledge, it's fine. So actually, I think they're the same thing. If you're producing knowledge, the medium is just the way in which you communicate that knowledge. All right, thanks.
I wanted to make an observation which is very striking about the way that you work. So you've talked about collaboration, you've talked about very relational practice of scholarship, so working together, supporting each other as a community. To me, that's a paradigm shift compared to if you think of the PhD as an individual endeavor with your advisor and your committee. I think what you're talking about is the future of doctoral studies, in which it takes a village to do this together, and it can be done with joy, with care for each other. And so I'm very grateful that you're sharing this story about here it's the present, but I'm hoping that the kind of doctoral studies that you're describing here become common elsewhere as well.
Thank you very much. I think that is what we would hope for the future, to have collaboration everywhere, and to be able to go everywhere and collaborate with other peers. I think that would be the goal. So right now we are closing the session. I would invite just Paulo to make some final remarks.
Well, and this is our step towards what you expect. And by the way, I would like to say that we intend to make this session, the recording of this session, public, and allow other people to comment and to ask on this, and to maintain this conversation beyond the 2 minutes in which we will end in here. It shouldn't end here, but for now it's this, but we hope you and other people can contribute to this discussion and to disseminate what we have discussed here, and maybe contribute to making it broader, as you expect. Thank you.
This is improvised and unexpected even for me. I would just like to dedicate this session to Guilherme, a PhD student who unexpectedly passed away last Saturday, and we're going to miss him.
Well, so thank you again for this lovely session. So we'll get back to our formality in Aveiro, asking for your collaboration. For coffee break now at 11, and reminding you that at 11:30 parallel sessions will continue. Then we will have lunch, and after lunch in the afternoon we will have another round table with the chair, that is Professor Rita Almendra. Okay, so hope to see you all again here in the afternoon.
Olá, boa tarde. I assume that at least these few words you already know. Olá, boa tarde. So let's go with pleasure for the final moment of this exciting conference. And now it's time to introduce Rita Almendra, the Professor Rita Almendra, who will, with the conveners of Design Research Society, this special group of education, discuss a few topics. So, Rita Almendra is a designer and a full professor at Department of Design at the Faculty of Design and Faculty of Architecture in Lisbon University. She was a member of the Scientific Council at the Faculty of Architecture more than a decade, and is now still the coordinator of design doctoral program at same faculty. I have to say that I shortened the curriculum and all the functions and all the responsibilities Rita Almendra has, so it's really very summarized. She has lectured at Design Master Programs, the course of Design Theory, Design Critics, and Design Management. And from 2007, she is also in charge of design process management, sustainable design, design research, etc. Teaches also courses at the design studio, namely design service, design processes, design intelligence, and design solutions management at the post-graduation program of the Lisbon School of Economics and Management. Okay, so it's really a large scopus of interests and of research. It's also interesting to say that with the research unit of CIAUD, which corresponds to our EDMIs, and there at the faculty is the Research Center in Architecture, Urban Planning and Design. Professor Almendra is the leader, the coordinator of a group called Redes. And the Redes, you probably already heard or participated in the series of conferences that, they are a series indeed, that were developed, and Redes means in effect design education and design research. So it's a group and it's also a series of conferences. So besides all of these activities of research, of coordination, Rita Almendra is also particularly a great friend that I have, and that also University of Aveiro has, because she comes to collaborate with us in many activities, like in PhD defenses, so jury defenses, in lecturing, and in the advisory board of our research unit. And now, so it's with really great pleasure and honor that we have her within this conference. So Rita and all the other members, please, you can come to your seats and, well, go on with the talk.
So, hello everyone, I became bigger with, with the words of Fátima. I'm not that big, that bright, that whatever. So I have to tell you that I had organized, first Violeta, thank you Violeta for the invitation. Violeta told me that, well, if I could close the session, the last day. I know that is a difficult task always, because normally people are less energized. I have strong voice and lots of energy. So I said, yes, it's nice. I like challenges. It's okay. And then I structure it in a way that she says, oh, okay, we could summarize around the topics of the conference. Okay. And then I did a marvelous PowerPoint. And then, yes, 2 days ago, she said, well, we were thinking about doing a mind mapping around the themes. Could you take that map and start as a starting point for the conversation with the... I said, sure, I can do it. Just do the mind map and we will do it based on the mind map. Then the mind map was growing short, in a very timid way, and I said, well, maybe it won't work. At lunchtime, these friends of mine, another one is there, I don't know where he is. Yes, yeah, okay. approached me and said, well, maybe we can do a different dynamic based on 3 questions that we were arranging here. Could you take those questions and... So I said, okay, nice idea. So it will be this way, okay? Nevertheless, and because we have 40 minutes at least, okay, and 3 questions for 40 minutes, well, sometimes is a bit, is too short maybe, and sometimes it will be too long, but nevertheless, I didn't resist to somehow share with you some of the reflections I had during these days of the conference. I have to tell you that, well, it is supposed, I think, but the general perception I had, feeling, not perception, feeling I had in the conference is that it is an honest one, and that is nice. An honest in a way that people share their perspectives with openness. It is what I would say it is expected in design education, but nevertheless, this is the feeling, the general feeling I had, and that is very good. We feel welcome, secure, in an honest place, okay, with honest discussions. And then, well, I have a very chaotic handwriting. It is the way I better think, is by writing by hand, not a chaotic mind, but a chaotic handwriting. And so I was here since the beginning with Eckhart, and I saw him talking in a way about the villagers very enthusiastically, and about Latour and the phrasing of Latour, which is different from the original wording of designers about problem solving and so on. Well, but what I think in that way is that we are always trying to rephrase things that are here long time ago. The wicked problems of Rita are somehow the ambiguity in the phrasing of Latour. And when I thought about that while he was talking, I thought that it will be useful for you, if you want, to explore deeper Latour's philosophy, because he has quite interesting things that and some reflections here, quite interesting things. I don't know if you ever worked with the outils of discernement, discernment tools of Latour. He created that in the pandemic time. And as Heitor already told today, the pandemic time was nice because we could see that people gather around. And he decided to create these discernment tools that have 6 steps to approach complex social problems somehow. And all the sessions I saw, even the ones related with AI, have to do with complex social phenomena. So that is one thing that I leave you here. And somehow other questions arise. I have more questions, of course, always more questions. That's the good thing about thinking, no, because, well, it's a privilege. It's my utmost pleasure thinking. And some of the questions are related with, for instance, learning through decentralized networks, community-driven labs, instead of in a kind of a post-institutional approach to design education. These are some provocations. Or thinking of design as a reshaper of realities. That idea that students would learn to deconstruct systems instead of building, unbuilding, okay, challenging power structures, intervene in ecological, political, social crises. These ideas were ideas that I heard along the things. Erase disciplinary boundaries. We made an effort to define our boundaries of design, and now we see that that doesn't work that much. Okay, so we could think of designers as emerging as world builders, system disruptors, critical futurists. All these ideas somehow should be discussed in this context of design education. And also what I saw is that somehow we are afraid to discuss deeper issues, like the abandoning of capitalist models of innovation, or the training of designers as environmental activists rather than creators. Instead of teaching them how to create new products, train them to intervene into broken systems. So focus more on preservation, restoration, care. And somehow all that I saw, maybe I am wrong, during this conference, a common line of all is that we are concerned about the future, about designing the future, and how it will be, how can we somehow contribute to that future in good ways. So my colleagues here prepared 3 questions. I don't know if they are there. Yes? No? And they will be, instead of me reflecting alone, you will reflect with us, okay? And then the idea is that we will have 3 questions here, and we will give you 1-2 minutes for you to answer it if you want, of course. And after that, we will try to explore your questions about the question, or your answers to the question, or your doubts about the question, and make it dynamic with all this. Yes? Mm-hmm. So the first one, I don't see it. Yes.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you so much, Rita. That has already helped consolidate all sorts of things I've seen over the last few days. Right, we would like to make this much more of a conversation, despite this being a lecture space. So we're going to try to subvert that by getting you actively involved. Could you get out either a pad, a pen, or your phone, something you can write or draw with, please? So we'll just give you a moment to do that. Sorry, you weren't supposed to see that. I'm keeping it back. I will show it in a minute. I'm just waiting for everybody to get something out. They've got some way of recording something for themselves. So we're going to give you 2 minutes to respond to this question, which I'll show you in a moment, by writing something just for yourself or drawing something for yourself. So your time starts now. 10 seconds left. Okay, in a room full of educators, you know what's coming next. We would like you to share what you've done with the person next to you. Ask the person next to you what they've done and vice versa. So we're going to give you maybe like 2 minutes in each direction. So a total of 4 minutes to have a conversation with the person next to you based on your response or drawing to that question.
We have groups of 4.
For me, the next stage would be anyone who wants to. I think there's at least 2 ways to do this, but you may have your own way. Rita.
Yeah, tell me.
Well, one way is you ask people to share the thought they had or the drawing, or you can ask people to share what their neighbour had done. So you kind of like you're promoting someone else. We're not going to hear from everybody, but you can.
Yes,
you can bounce it for as long as you want. When you feel like the energy is.
Yes.
We can do the next question if you feel like.
Okay. And then, okay.
It's like jazz, yeah?
Yeah, I improvise.
You're very good at that.
Já está? Já terminaram?
Yeah, I think it's feeling almost a bit more businessy. I thought there was a really, really good point about the fact that this is not 1 fold, 2 fold, 1, 3 fold, 2. These are happening at the same time. And particularly the fact that design thinking with a capital D and T is not even invented by designers. Very important fact, and that's why we think it so much. Because it's nothing to do with us. Or it takes the worst bits and that's been annoying because a lot of people have been doing critiques of design thinking for the last 7, 8 years.
Querem mais, mas...
Was enough.
Eu não sei se ele está a marcar. Is taking the time? Do we have limit time? Do we have limit time? No. Okay. Yes. But it is slowing down. People are solving the discussions.
You want to go?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Hello, hello. So, I will start. Of course, we don't have time to talk with each one of you. The ones who have an eager to share, please come forward. But nevertheless, I will ask some of you some of your thoughts about this, but not of your reflections about the question, but the reflection of the person you were dialoguing with. And I will start there with the first ones to finish, because probably they were very sure about what they wanted to tell. So it was a short dialogue. So, Emilia, tell me, can you share with me what João, of course, think about?
Okay. Thank you so much. We were really well aligned, so it was a surprise. So João was saying that he intertwined the past and the present. Future. Sorry, I did say it wrong. The past and the future. It was
so I
just
think
like
that you
that.
should take more time
to talk about it.
To talk about it, because you rested in present, not the future.
No, because I just
Sorry,
didn't
I
say
was
it
just
wrong.
joking.
So, but
okay.
you will understand now. João will talk about mine. Why we are so aligned.
Emilia wrote that what was intertwined was a sense of insecurity, but also a hopeful sense. Both were intertwined. So how we interpret it is, yes, the past is our concerns, our fears, our insecurities. But as good design researchers, we always take an optimistic perspective, I guess. Yes, it's gloomy if we look at what's going on, but we don't give up. We think we can find a solution. We're solution-oriented, like Cross described us. So we're optimistic in the end. Possibilistic. It's too many syllables. Yeah, that was it.
Thank you. So, yes, please. Wait. We need all to hear, not just...
So my partner made something which kind of like, without knowing we did intertwine. Dominica made a shower which is flowing, and it's kind of like seamlessly just adding or becoming, it's not disrupting anything, it's just becoming part. And I feel like that's how design should be. It's seamlessly just becoming part, and it's intertwined with other things around. But yeah, so that was my understanding of Dominica's drawing.
Yeah, and it's really funny because Sugala, she drew fire, so I'm the water part and she's fire. but actually interesting thing is that even if we have totally opposite phenomenons, they're complementary, because her idea was the fire is like to be here to illuminate some kind of issues and to give some hope. Yeah, you want to add something? Yeah, to give some hope. Fire has many connotations, can be understood in different way. And I just add from my side that fire is also a place where we gather together, and it's also something which I think is important in this context, and gather and share and creates kind of community and positive energy. Yeah, thank you.
Nice, thank you. Some more? Yes, please.
Angela and I, it turns out, we're very much intertwined. And Angela wrote about the metaphor of a braid. We both were moved by that presentation, and and so she wrote the words braid, knowledge, and relationships as being important and intertwined. And
yes, and Kathy had community, and what else was there? I've forgotten now. But you drew a picture. But I think the metaphor that Melanie here, amazing Melanie, the metaphor of the braid, I think for Kathy and I also, like just historically, how braids were used during the transatlantic slave trade, and people wanting their freedom, where they would actually braid maps in their hair to safe routes. And then the women would travel with those maps, and everyone would be able to read those maps to figure out where they need to go to get to safe places. So maybe without knowing it, Melanie, you've started something in us.
I can't wait.
Rodrigo here. Rodrigo has done nothing, I think, no, because I didn't saw him speaking with no one.
I'm sorry, I
You
got
woke
in,
up.
I didn't do the homework. I was actually doing a podcast with Juan de la Rosa for Emilian and Unicom. This is kind of like a personal note, and like coming from so far and being with a buddy from USID, I think reflecting on this question is, for me, the intertwined is like how, for me, the thinking of design is completely intertwined to these people that I love to see again, and it's kind of very difficult to separate the two, like the good nature and the intention of, and then the need for having these type of situations of talking about design. We're often so, I mean, at least I feel so alone in my computer trying to write something and trying to understand and negotiating with the materials of the design education situation. And it's in this like often very far distant places that we can actually come together and intertwine and have all these discussions. And I think it's just a way of saying that it was a fantastic situation for me, and I just wanted to share it. That's the intertwinedness.
Thank you. Some more? Yes, up there. Yes, the PhD voices.
I chose answer these questions with another questions. What is not intertwined? Because I believe chaos is just things that we don't know. Because if you know, we will be not chaos, and maybe design is a way to understand the chaos. Like Jenny Jacobs say, if you don't know I forgot the name of the tree in the 1 minute. Folha in English. As folhas caem.
The leaves.
Yeah, the leaves fall in the forest. No, outono. Sorry, I'm a little
Say
bit.
it in Portuguese, then we will translate. Don't
Se a gente não sabe que as folhas caem no outono, interpretaríamos aquilo como um caos. E assim a gente interpreta também a cidade. Por não entender as interrelações, o que está interrelacionado, a gente vê o caos. E o design, eu acredito que possa ser a forma da gente compreender esse caos, de ver as relações que existem. Porque acredito que tudo, de certa forma, está relacionado.
So, basically, you can only intertwine what you know. If you don't know, you are intertwining in a dangerous or irresponsible way or whatever. But well, the metaphor was with the leaves of the tree, that if you don't know that in autumn they fell down, you will think that something bad is occurring there. And it is a natural thing. Thank you. Some more? Maybe we can get the second. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. I am Leslie Ann Noel, and I'm one of the members of the convening group. I'm going to take a little moment before I move to the next question to, Derek introduced us, I think, on the first day. We're the convening group of EdSIG. I think we've offered Violeta some support throughout, but Violeta, I really want to thank you and thank Universidade de Aveiro for this work. I think it's been a fantastic conference. And so the theme, of course, this question that we asked you first is about the theme of the conference, which is Intertwinia or Intertwinia. I don't know how people would pronounce it in Portuguese. And as we talked about it, we thought intertwining is nice and maybe organized and intentional about making something, or maybe it's accidental. But now we're going to move you to a question that is also related to intertwining. But we want you to think about what is tangled what has been tangled or untangled for you throughout the conference. So again, we'll give you a few minutes to think about it. Maybe some ideas became more clear or less clear, and then we'll do the same activity. I could give you back.
Emaranhar. Enovelar. There's an issue of the language.
Yes, I know. It's a big thing.
Yeah.
We've even had one of the research groups in the DRS have almost broken away because they can only discourse. Well, it's a French group, very strong tradition of philosophy, very strong tradition of conception through language.
Yes.
And it's becoming problematic.
Yes, if you do not,
Indeed.
because here the Brazilians, we say it,
Yep.
the translation in Portuguese of Portugal is different from the one of Brazil.
Yes, indeed.
And then people are trying to find a common language,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
common definition of tangle and tangle. And most part of the discussion here is the definition of the thing.
That needs to be tangled.
Yes.
Yeah,
Of course,
that would be good.
they are discussing, and mostly, yeah. The idea is that, yeah, okay. Okay, I was sharing here that most of I hear quite well. I have that problem with students. When I turn and they are saying, well, she sings, I'm going to do that. And I hear a kind of a kilometer. So I was hearing, and I was sharing here with Derek that sometimes these sessions are useful, but around the concepts and the wording, most of the discussion was done about the meaning of the word. Okay, so that can be obstructive or not, or opening a different discussion about the meaning, because in Brazilian is different than in Portuguese. They were discussing that. The word is different and it means different. Sometimes it's a short detail, but it means different things. Culturally, it means different things, yes. So that is another issue in this discussion. But I would start here now with Hande and, yes, and Katja. You were just writing, okay. Those guys were discussing, okay. 2 minutes then, if you want to discuss, yeah? Because they were discussing, but it was the words.
Right.
I'm curious to hear that discussion as well.
Yeah, yes, that's an entanglement.
Because even when we talked about it, we didn't know if people would think about it positively
Yes,
or
or negatively, which is why the question's got the double inflection. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Words can be tricky. So they were talking a lot among them about this. I think these are the two those are the two. And the other one is also indigenous. They were trying to find a common.
Oh, sorry. Right, so I went with. So it's the expansion of the discipline. It's this kind of ongoing thing that we like. It's more than human design now, or there's always another buzzword to this AI in design. And we keep coming up with these things. The untangling thing is particularly from that keynote. Is that we're coming up with the same thing again and again. There is this. I mean, it's really important that a new generation comes up with their own words, their new, like, entanglements. But there is also a whole bunch of stuff that's already been done. It's not to be the kind of grumpy old academic that says, yeah, but we've already done this. It's not that it's already done. It's that somebody else has put thought into it. So maybe you could work with those thoughts, play with those thoughts too. Does that make sense? Are you joking? Are you joking? Seriously?
Okay.
This is
Yeah.
2 out of 2.
I think it's getting interesting for them. Hello. Should Ande, do you already have something to tell us? Oh, you need the mic. He's coming. Well.
Okay. So the
Hello.
Okay, I think first of all I need to mention the fact that English is not our first language, so there might be some. Yes, we were quite tangled with the fact that how do we understand tangled and untangled. So for Katja, so I'm sorry, I got nervous. Like creative and free and carry mindsets, they are quite green mindset are quite tangled because they are like different types of mindsets, but they are like tangled according to her during this like conference. And like the untangled, what creates the entangled is like the surviving. So the goal of the life. So what's the goal of the lives, and that makes us untangled.
Okay.
I don't know if that's what you were expecting, but that's what you
I
get.
don't expect nothing and everything, so always.
No, I said surviving with quality, and that's untangled, so that design thinking should give, or one of the goals of design thinking is make life better while we are living here, and we are all trying to survive every day, but with quality, and design thinking should give its part to it with impact. So anyways, that's very tangled and untangled, so confusion in my mind. Handa's tangled. She tangled with the first discussion about AI, and we're trying to untangle her doubts or confused perception from the first discussion during the conference, going to other communications and to try to untangle it. And in the end, she said she's still tangled.
Okay, thank you. And here, maybe I would like to hear Nicole, what's Derek? Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, let me think how Derek thinks. So the first one about the kind of tangledness to continuing of including different thoughts and disciplines and hypes into design. So it's getting much more tangled and instead of clarity. But on the other hand, the untangling, I think, was all about understanding words that, like design thinking or terms we might know, but untangling them in a different way. So it's not about, sometimes it might feel repetitive or you've heard that like 10,000 times. There were 10,000 critiques about, what it is or isn't or whatever. But interestingly, that you do learn every time a little bit of a new thing. So maybe we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves in some degree. But maybe I didn't quite interpret that right.
No, I think that was more your entangling, was it not, Nick? Like we've become entangled as well.
I tangled our brains.
Yeah. And it is definitely something, I mean, we need to avoid it because like we're the old academics now, so you do have to be careful about saying these kind of things, but it's like, we have heard a lot of this before, and we do keep hearing it again and again and again. Yeah. And Katja, your presentation this morning was just a prime example of that. There are these kind of recurring themes. Yeah. But there's also something really powerful, and this is the entanglement, or is it entanglement? I can't remember. The retangling, is that the next generation has to make their own understandings and their own sensibilities of it. So yes, these are new words, and you go, right, okay, whatever. But that doesn't belong to you. That's the next, that's going to be the future, that's going to be the other stuff. So that was quite nice. What I would say though is, maybe try to look at some of these older resources, not as Nigel Cross said or Donald Schoen said, but use them as other voices from our community who have said some interesting things to come up with new ideas. Keep them alive by critique, by knocking them down. Yeah, that's is that enough?
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Don't jump on me. More. There are a few persons that... Yes, I was expecting you to lift the hand. I was looking like...
Did you get your untangling?
No.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I think that some things are tangled and there's kind of an acceptance of that, of the entanglement, and an avoidance of some the toxicity and the extractive nature of some of the entanglement, and we need to, it's a real need to sort of just make this kind of distinctions between the entanglements that can be generative and the entanglements that are destroying the information ecosystem, for one, like the ecological, like our efforts to address climate change, for two. And so obviously I'm talking about AI or large language models, and I mean that has been a big theme for me at this conference, and and the ways in which the authoritarian turn in politics more widely is embedded in these kinds of technologies and the design sensibilities that are being cultivated with these technologies in ways that I feel like we've got to be a lot more critical towards what we're allowing to the kinds of become a normative part of our engagement with each other through digital spaces.
Thank you. And your colleague?
Me?
You.
Okay. Well, I find kind of related to what she said right now. We were discussing right now about what should be entangled and what should not in some way. Like when we, as a young discipline, we have a non-disciplinary also. We are still, from our perspective, still defining what design is, what design research is, and we are still debating. If you ask to one of us what design is, we give a different answer on this, and research is getting even more complex. And when we are starting to merge, because we need to define, we inside the practice, inside within also the education, the more we mesh, we merge things to define our complexity, our way we do stuff, and so on and so forth, without reflecting on ourselves as designer, as educators, as a researcher. And look, for instance, she was talking about the AI, no? The fact that we always address the AI, the power of AI, but we give the power to AI. It's not that AI is powerful by itself. We only nurturing the fact that this is capable of do something, but we define the power of information that it gives and the kind of results that it gives. And if we don't have the critical approach also, and we don't instill also the critical approach to criticize and put in context what it produces, yes, it could be powerful, but I found like there should be not a limit, but places in which some, as I said, the toxic referment to what could be tangled and not untangled. Yeah. So it's sort of like a place in which we could still debate for long, but what has been tangled and untangled right now, I don't know. On these, I have no answer still.
Thank you. Do you want to pursue the third one? Oh, the timing. Oh, okay. We are slaves of time. Yes, so we are almost closing. If anyone wants to add something, yes, of course, Rodrigo. You are so happy to be here. You need to communicate your happiness with us.
I was looking at, I like to do these etymological games, and I went and looked for what tangle, where the word comes from. Actually, it's a Germanic word that means seaweed. And I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago, and seaweed is fascinating. It's not a plant, and it's been here longer than a lot of stuff. And I think it's an interesting metaphor. Even the discipline of design is so young, and the profession of design is so young, but designing as an activity is as old as humans have been. And I think for all of my complaints about diagrams and whatnot, I think what is important, and the fact that it is a young discipline, it is absolutely necessary to constantly question their own existence, or what is it that we mean, what is it that we do. And I think that's in a way healthy, and it reflects, I think the metaphor would be here, it is designing always going to be around as long as there's humans. I'm not sure about with AI. But it's this entanglement and then the need to disentangle it. It's a constant back and forth and redefinition, which makes it an alive discipline. It's not something that it's scholastic and calcified. So I think it's, in a way, it's intrinsical to what it is to think about design. And the other interesting fact about seaweed is that it grows even in moonlight. So even in darker times, I think design can continue to develop.
Violeta is looking a bit worried with timing because she has a wonderful surprise for you in the close-up, no? The closing session, yes, she has. So thank you so much for this kind of crazy, dynamic, fluid, whatever, closing session we had here, debate. Thank you so much for your cooperation and leadership, because they were the leaders. I was here just performing. And, well, Violeta, take the stage. Thank you.
But firstly, I want to thank you, Professor Rita Almendra, for all your flexibility in attending all the different requests, always changing, designing and co-designing together. Thank you so much for your sharing. And we leave you with the third question so you can think about it. How will you continue to be intertwined? But that one is for you. Yes, you'll think about it. Okay, so now it's time to think about the future, because we are ending this edition of DRS, but usually ends are also beginnings, so it's time to look ahead about the future of this event, Learn by Design, but also about the future of this community that is continuing to grow. We had that perception yesterday at the session of 8 a.m. Not many people there, but the ones that were there, they were very happy for finding their tribe. So to help us to reflect about this, about the future of this community, and also about the future of Learn by Design, we will listen Derek Jones, convener of EdSIG.
Yeah, it's not going to be that significant or detailed. Don't worry, we're not going to run over, I promise you. In fact, I'm probably just going to actually just do a bunch of thank yous, if that's okay, because it'll be a way to actually maybe talk about some of that future stuff. I have to start by thanking just some of the organisers. I mean, this has been one of, I've had so many amazing meals in this place, yeah? You know what I'm talking about? Like that chocolate pudding, I mean, come on. We need to thank the cooks, the people who keep these buildings running, so yeah, total big thank you for that. We need to thank the people who have organised us, that's the PhD students sitting up at the back, the people who have helped us out with the AV and stuff like that. Massive thanks. Like, this is the secret to conferences. It's like the coffee there and the AV stuff working. You know what happens when that doesn't happen. It just breaks down. I would then like to obviously thank the organisers themselves. I mean, you've organised a fantastic event. I've had one of the greatest times of my life at this. I've laughed so hard last night that actually yeah, I had to go home and, yeah, anyway, it doesn't matter what happened. Don't worry about it. It's just been such a good experience to see people face to face. I'd also just quite like to thank the keynote speakers. Has anybody ever been to a conference where the keynote speaker just talks about, you know, stuff that just relates to nothing about the conference, or just rants about stuff, you know, from like 50 years ago that was irrelevant to what's actually happened, or didn't bring it up to date? That didn't happen at all with any of the keynote speakers. They were here, they were genuine, they were honest. I thought it was really, really interesting. So thank you all very much for that, the keynote speakers. So, more formally, I would like to thank, obviously, the University of Aveiro. It's a fantastic campus. I actually love this campus. I've had agoraphobia a couple of times in this campus, and that's a sign of modernism in architecture, by the way. So thank you very much. I'd also like to thank the city of Aveiro. I really like this place. It's a fantastic place. It feels very welcoming. There's something I'd just like to note about, we were talking about this earlier, about the space that is allowed in a place. I'm getting a bit architecture-y here, I'm sorry, bear with me. The space that you allow in a city or in a campus or in an event that just allows people to connect, okay? Hour and a half for lunch, just that easing. And then suddenly I learned today that this is actually a central fact of Portuguese life, that when you're going on a journey, you plan where it is that you're going to stop off to have wine and to have the dinner. And that time, that's really quite important. That for me is one of the big intertwinings of this place. It was the reconnecting with people and the connecting with new people over these kind of spaces and opportunities. So thank you very much once again for that. Thank you, Aveiro. Thank you, Portugal. Thank you for the attitude of this place that allowed that to happen, that permission. So thank you very much once again on that, Violeta. We are not entirely sure where the next Learn by Design conference is. That's the kind of bad news. The good news is 2 weeks ago we had 0 options. As of today, we've got 4 options. So that's quite nice. Different parts of the world, different places. So we're not entirely sure what we're going to do with that yet. We'll have a bit of a think about that. We're also going to have a bit of a think, I think, over the next year about how we organise ourselves, how it is that we engage with the community. There's different technical and different social and political issues that we are contending with just now. And I think I'd like to really make a big inroad in this next year into reaching out to the rest of the community to start some conversations. And that's the last thing that I would like to thank. It's you. It's basically everybody here, because everybody here has either contributed work, has written work, has also been part of the review process, has also been part of the community, has been part of the community that contributes to our knowledge base. This is the stuff that we will go on to use to educate the future designers. So thank you all for coming to this conference and being a part of it. Thank you very much. And finally, because I'm just going to hand straight back to Violeta, I just have to personally thank you, Violeta. Like, absolutely, Naz was absolutely right. She said, if you're struggling for a future conference, Violeta will do it. So thank you, Violeta. You're a total superstar. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, but now I also need to express my personal gratitude to a few people because it was a teamwork. So I begin with Professor Fátima Pombo, Director of the Research Institute of Design, Media and Culture of University of Aveiro. She was the very first person with whom I shared my intention to apply to host Learn by Design, and her response was immediate, go for it. And from that moment on, she has offered constant encouragement, guidance, and practical support. It was not only words. So encouragement in this case meant really concrete actions that made this conference possible. Many, many little and big actions. And she even arranged the beautiful musical opening that we had at the opening ceremony. Thank you, Fátima. Next, my thanks go to the EdSIG members, Derek, Leslie-Anne, Nicole, and also Liv and Ricardo that are not here. Thank you for trusting us to host the event, for encouraging me and offering also practical help throughout all the process. And thank you, Derek, for accepting to be part of the organizing team. Thank you to the Portuguese organizing team, and please come forward because I need to present you because people asked me, they wanted to know you. So please come forward, Gonçalo, Miriam, Silvina, and Soraya. We are a small team. You are incredible, and I haven't done this without you. Thank you, Gonçalo, for building and managing our website and always solve every technical problem. Always very calm. Always keep calm when I was overreacting. Thank you so much. Thank you to Miriam and Silvina for creating the visual identity and all of the materials. And thank you to Miriam to stay up late many nights brainstorming with me. Only her can keep talking with me so late in the night. Yeah, 3 a.m. many times. And thank you, Soraya, for being our project manager, always checking our adherence to timelines and budgets. She is the engineering one on the team. And above all, thank you for your friendship, because we did this because we are colleagues, but it really worked well because we are friends. So it was demanding, but it was also fun, and it was really fun. And don't relax, because we have still a lot of work to do, okay? She's not here, but I need to acknowledge Sandra Fuentes and her team, Virginia and Sarah. These are the ladies that interacted with you on the registration process. They organized the logistics, the keynotes traveling, and also they ensured that we were well fed and refreshed. So, meals, we need to thank you, UNAV, in the person of Sandra Fontes. Thank you to our volunteers. Please come forward to Artur, João, David, Miguel, Gabrielas, because we have two, Anna and Julia. These are PhD and master students, and I think for the majority of them it was the first time participating in this type of event. And they showed remarkable skills in managing parallel sessions and many other tasks that we always constantly asking them. Your effort was invaluable. And last but not least, thank you, the delegates and the keynote speakers and the roundtable chairs for your generosity. Thank you all for standing by Design Education, for submitting your work, for being here, and for sharing your knowledge. You are the ones who make the event real, and without you, we wouldn't have Learn by Design 2025. Do you want to come here to take a picture? Because I
want to thank also the technical support of our university.
Sure.
In person of the school, I, as director of the research unit, I have a right hand and a left hand called Mariana. Mariana, can you please?
Picture because it's yes, on his face. Asking me. Okay. Get closer. Close friendship. Yes, get close. Okay.
When you checked in, you received 2 swallows, one ceramic, one illustrated by Miriam. And these are a symbol of how our perspectives in design education connect, cross boundaries, and grow freely. Throughout these 3 days, we affirmed that Intertwinia is a space where diverse, individual, and independent perspectives meet and intertwine, creating a shared global vision. So in this closing session, we invite you to contribute to a future manifesto for Intertwinia in design education. So in the next 5 minutes, we go back to the minutes. 2 minutes, sorry, 2 minutes. It's not a brainstorming, it will be a swallow storming. So not post-its today, sorry, I know you love it, but you will receive a paper swallow. And you have these 2 minutes to write down the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about this concept called Intertwinia in design education. If you want to, you can also sign it with your name, okay? And then you will give it back to us. We will keep it with us.
o teu som para trás.
Foi o Arthur. So this is just a small sample of the photos that we are going to share on the website. There's a lot more, but we don't want to take you much time now because, you know, some of you have to leave, also me. So we promise we share all the photos via website, and you'll receive a link to download. Thank you so much.
So now we will collect your contributions, your swallows in paper, and we use them to build the Intertwinia manifesto. The result will not be revealed today, of course, but we will include it in the book of proceedings, okay? Just by curiosity, they are using, it's only a curiosity, they are using a special basket to collect the swallows. It's called a canastra. It's very typical from Aveiro. Many years ago, it was an essential tool of daily life in all the Rio de Aveiro coastal region. It was used to carry and sell fish, and it was what women that sold fish, called varinas in Portugal, used to carry the canastras in their heads. So it's just a curiosity. So again, the result of these swallows storming will be included in the book of proceedings in the form of a manifesto for Intertwinia in design education. These 3 intense days and inspiring days have proven that the design education community is alive, dynamic, responsible, caring, and deeply human. As you leave Aveiro, please take the energy of this conference with you and use it to create, to question, and to connect wherever you go. Share a story, start a conversation, and experiment boldly. So let us go forth not simply with memories, but also with the courage to act, the curiosity to explore, and the joy of knowing that we are truly intertwined, as Professor Fátima reminded us at the opening ceremony, we never walk alone. Thank you so much for this experience.